Alrighty, everyone, welcome back. Thank you as always for listening. And this week, watching, we have another real person episode where today I'm joined by my friend Kevin Sebesta. Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for having me. I'm real person, just not normal.
I'd agree with that. That's a great summary of yourself. So, how I know Kevin is you've heard me mention before the Rock Retirement Club, which is a membership group of now well over 1,000 people, real people who join this group for a sense of community and chat and resources and guided sort of content and structure and discussion by what we call ourselves coaches. I'm one of them. Kevin is another one. So that's how I know Kevin. We both are faculty, if you want to call us that, in the club. And what's interesting about Kevin, there's lots of things interesting about Kevin, but he is doing the FIRE thing, the financial independence, retire early. He's been out of the working world for a while at a relatively young age when he did it. So I think today it would be great to chat about you, Kevin, your experiences, your background, your prep for the FIRE thing, and not just you specifically, but also broader context about FIRE. There's a lot of, I think, misconceptions, misunderstandings. I know I have some myself about the whole FIRE thing. So if you can sort of talk us through that and share what you want to share, and should be fun.
Yeah, it should be great. I'll just start so you don't have to run everything.
I just want to let you know first, though, Kevin. I
Oh,
saw two
I'm sorry.
blackbirds.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on, man, you're messing up the flow. I saw two blackbirds stuck together this morning. They were Velcros.
Oh,
Yeah?
nice.
Okay.
Nice. That's
All right.
good.
Now with that out of the way, we can move on. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't have any of those. I didn't prepare for that.
Quite all right.
Um, so yeah, I met Andy in the Rock Retirement Club, and I'm one of the coaches who are real retirees. And Andy and Roger and Tanya and even Troy are actual professionals who do this with real retirees. So whereas my perspective is had been one person's perspective and friends that I talk with, Andy has the power of talking with many people living their lives and depending on Andy to structure that. So it's we have a different perspective in the club, which I think brings interesting positions for members as well as people in real life. And so my story is I'm 55. I've been retired. This is my 12th year of retirement. I retired when I was 43 at the end of my 43rd year. Um, at that point, I was going to retire at the end of 40th year, but I decided to stay a couple extra years because I loved my job and worked from home. And then I realize now that 43 is ridiculously young to retire, but
Could I just pause there? Why? What changed or what led you to realize now that that was? Do you regret it, or you're just saying in general it's too young to
oh no,
retire?
no, it's fantastic.
Okay.
It just seems like the risk of having a 20 something year career to fund a fifth possible 50-year retirement seems just ludicrous if you think about it. And unless you're eating rice and beans for money reasons, not for health reasons, like I would eat it for health. But it just seems like an impossible funding source. We didn't have huge money when we retired, and but we lived a smaller, normal lifestyle. So
Hmm.
um, my wife did retire 3 years before me in 2011. And so we have a lot of experience with this. We have a lot of friends who are retired in their 40s and 50s, and we all kind of talk our way through this. And I'll tell you a funny story is why we picked in 2000. Well, in 2005, I decided let's do a 7 year push to get to 2012 to retire. I'd been saving since I was 12 years old, part-time jobs and stuff. So I always had savings. And um, my wife and I, in late 90s, where I worked at Honeywell Aerospace, I was a computer guy. They had a layoff coming, and so they said one person out of the four people in your cube is going to be gone on Friday, and all the other cubes around you. So that kind of shocked me. So we decided to live off one of our incomes. We were both professionals, and basically save the other one, just so that if something happened to our jobs, we wouldn't have to change our lifestyle. And so we still lived good. We traveled, we went to Europe and stuff, but it was all under a structure. And so we started that in the late 90s, in addition to earlier savings. And In 2005, my mom said, "You should live your life now," because my dad just passed away at 61, something like that. And so said, "You should live your life now." And it was 2005. So we couldn't retire. That was crazy. So we made a 7-year push for 2012. And the reason I picked 2012 is I picked June of 2012, our anniversary, because at the end of 2012 was the Mayan apocalypse calendar. Do you remember that?
Yes, I
And
do.
I
Yeah.
thought if that's going to happen, we should retire 6 months before. So that's how we set our target date.
Okay.
It's very logical, but illogical at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, the joke would have been on everyone else if the apocalypse did actually happen. Then,
That's
you
right.
would
Yeah.
have been brilliant in hindsight. Not that it would have mattered
It would
because
have
none
been
of us would
worse
be
if the
here, but
apocalypse of financial stuff would have been happening now through the past 12 years. But
yeah.
it's turned
So,
out to be a fantastic tailwind from our base savings that we had.
right. So I was going to say, doing some math, going back 12 years, that takes us to 2014, 2013, depending when you want to start that clock. And I don't know what you're invested in. I guess we can touch on that later. But yeah, it's been, the markets have been in your favor and
Total
highly conducive
market
to living off of
return.
savings.
Yeah, total market return, total market index is about 5x where it was.
Yeah.
And that
So
was after it started coming back in the 10, 11, 12 years.
now I guess maybe we can get into this a little more, but is your nest egg larger than it was when you started? Like, do you approach it that you're only living off gains, or the market's been so good you've had trouble keeping up with spending?
Yeah, it's been hugely increased. I'm saying two, three X where we started, maybe. Now
Wow.
inflation's gone up
Yeah.
50%, I think, spending power, something of that. But yeah, it's still super high because we weren't there. I didn't know about 4% rules and stuff, and I wouldn't live that now if you forced me to because of the whole I'm not going to live worst case scenario for 30 years when I have a 40, 50-year retirement plan. Actually, those are contradicting statements, but still. Um,
Yeah.
uh, so we spent less than 4%, it turned out, and our accounts grew faster year over year over year over year, down a year over year, up, 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 down. So it's been really good. And we'll talk about that. It took until the 10th year when I hired a retirement planner to do a quadruple check of my analysis that they said, yeah, you should have been spending more the first 10 years of retirement. I said, oh, yeah, that's easy for you to
Well,
look back
thanks
and
for
say that.
it. Yeah.
So
Now,
we did
how did you?
upgrade.
Um, it sounds like you and your wife both made good money. I won't ask how much, but you had professional, sounds like white collar jobs, so that helped. Sounds like obviously you lived well below your means since you were only living off one person's income. Do you feel you were skimping? Like, did you even know what fire was and we were trying to reduce spending to hit this fire thing? Or you were just like, I don't know, this works for us. We're spending okay. We're having fun. Why not try to accelerate when we leave the workforce?
Yeah, I did not know what fire was. I figured I would become a director or something when I was 40, and then when I was 50, maybe go to teach at a community college. When I learned my computer skills, I taught it at the University of Alaska when I was a junior. I started teaching at the university and I taught through my MBA. And I thought that'd be a great career in the future to retire to at 50 for maybe 5 years and retire at 55. My dad retired early, which was good because he passed away at 61 or so.
Mhm.
Um, and my mom retired at 55. So I had always learned to, by watching my parents, to live fine, travel, control your costs, spend where you wanted to, save, and then you get this freedom later if you do this right. And so I was always on that path of saving logically, but we didn't cut corners. We bought 3-year-old cars and drove those 10 years. And our house is the same starterware house we've had since 91. It's 1,000 square feet. So I figure it's my starter house and hopefully my ending house. And so there's no need to downsize. We do have vacation homes and other homes and stuff. So
Now, where do you live? I mean, I know, but are you comfortable sharing? I know you live in
yeah,
two different
we
spots,
we
right?
split our time between Phoenix and San Diego.
Okay. And what was the starter house? Was it Phoenix or San Diego?
It's Phoenix. Yeah, it's
It
our
is, okay.
main house, favorite house.
And how did Alaska come into play? Just because you said you
I was
you
born there and I lived there through college. And my wife moved up there to get her MBA with me. We met when I was on vacation in college. And so we both graduated coincidentally the same time. And I said, I want to get my master's because I want to teach because it seemed like a nice job. And so we got our master's. And then I didn't have a full-time teaching opportunity or a full-time job. I had three part-time jobs working as a computer technician, working teaching, and I had a small business where I did computer consulting, which was awesome. I never realized I had three jobs in college because it was just cool.
Yeah.
Um, and so the day we graduated, we decided to move back to the starter house that we had in Arizona that we were renting for those 2 years. And we got married on solstice, summer solstice in Alaska, and then we moved the next day.
Yeah. Get
So
out of there
it's
before the
all
sun starts
everything
going
is
away.
like scheduled or structured, even though I wing it. It's the strangest.
Right. It's like the living dichotomy.
Exactly.
So then you stopped working 43. Your wife was, you said 3 years prior to you?
Yeah.
It sounds like she's comparable in age, roughly.
She's a little older than me, yes.
Okay. So
So
you're both, early 40s, mid 40s. Then what did you do? Was there any like, oh crap moments 1 year in, 2 year in, 3 years in, or was this more or less a fairly natural transition for you too?
so that's a great question. It was totally natural. I worked from home for 7 years before that into into 2014 when I left. So it was the days seemed normal. I was never a title. I am my job title person. I just said I was a computer guy, even though I had a big global infrastructure job. I traveled around the world twice for work, Europe many times. So I had this cool job, but I was never defined by the job. It was just something I did. So that transition from work was no big deal. Um, the financial side was interesting because what we did, well, I've always tracked my spending, geez, since high school each month, just what the outflow was, just so I had some idea of where things went. And maybe, 2000 to 2005, I didn't track it as much because it was always kind of consistent. But we knew what we spent each month on average. So what we did a couple years before we left our careers was we changed our direct deposit to our savings account. And then at the beginning of the month, we transferred our monthly budget to checking. So we started our
Mm.
own personal paycheck into checking. And so some months we were a few $100s extra in there so that the next month we would transfer less. So we realized we were under. A few months we spent more, like we had to get car tires or something. And so we had spent a little more. So we could see the 12 paycheck transfers that we did each for the year. And so we knew exactly what our spending was, and it tracked for a decade or more. And then so into retirement, that's what we worked from. And we did that from 2014 to 2020. And it just stayed right on track within, I don't know, $1,000 a month or something. It was no big deal.
Now, was your wife, did she have these same views and beliefs and like high level of awareness about money, or did you rub off on her, or she rub off on you, or what's the story there?
She's really good about our spending structure and our lifestyle structure. I think she had different money spendings. Like she had a new car when she was in college early on. And she saw it was funny because when she moved to Alaska, we had to get a little Bronco 2 four-wheel drive for her because she moved from Arizona and had to drive in snow. So we had a 2 year loan and we were going to leave after around 2 years. So I paid it off like 3 or 4 months early, and that just blew her mind. She'd never seen anything like that. And I said, well, I don't want to make payments as we're getting ready to move. And so I think early on she figured out that I had money sense. And so she just flowed along with the system, still got what she wanted and stuff. She knew it took time to decide when she wanted a new SUV, a newer car. She'd have to wear me down to get a BMW because I didn't want to do that. So we got a used BMW and we buy off peak. So it was 2008, I think we bought a BMW SUV because gas prices were super high and people were turning in their leases. So we got one cheap. And then in 2020, at the end of 2020, when nobody was driving because of COVID, we bought a hybrid Toyota and they were giving them away because gas was cheap. No one needed hybrids and no one was buying cars because nobody was driving. And so we've tended to buy off peak just kind of coincidentally, I think. So all those things matter when you're plan ahead, when you have delayed gratification. It it actually amplifies your success, I think.
Now, before talking about your involvement in the fire community, when you even found out that that community exists and that there's a word for it, fire, just looking back now, over a decade later, anything you wish you would have done differently in your own journey in this early retirement and how you and your wife have lived life since?
No, I don't think we've done, I would have done things differently. There's two pieces that I think about. One is I didn't know about total market index until 2008, maybe. I was listening to Clark Howard, the money saving guy, and he was talking about it. And I thought, well, it makes sense. The market's the market. And they built the whole Vanguard company off of this theory. And so somebody figured something out. So those were my first like bigger equity purchases were 2008. So if you think I'd been saving since the early 80s, back in the 1900s, when I was younger, then invested in bonds and then some CDs because that's how my dad invested. Because in Alaska, we had Alaska housing bonds and they were propped up by oil and interest rates are high. So they were 10+% all those years. So my money was always growing. And I didn't know how to buy stocks and I didn't want to buy from Dean Witter or Morgan Stanley or
Yeah.
pay their commissions. And none of that made sense to me until I got a low cost brokerage account and was able to buy total market index. Plus, I have an MBA and my wife's concentration is MBA in finance. They never, that I recall in the late 80s, no, sorry, early 90s when we graduated, ever mentioned total market index. They were too busy talking about alpha and beta and regression and all this stuff that I don't know who uses that, maybe endowments or something, but if they had said three words, total market index to me, in all that schooling, we would be worth triple what we are now.
How are you supposed to round out multiple years of a finance degree if all you do is tell someone total market index? Done. Like that's a two-page chapter and the story's
The
over,
Simple Path
right?
to Wealth book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Here, just read this book instead of my textbook.
Exactly. It's going to completely upend academia. Can't do that.
Yeah. So that's one thing I wish I had known about equity indexing would have been one. And the other thing that's coming into light now that I'm 55 and our wealth has been strong enough and stealthy, wealthy kind of thing is probably should have or could live in a nicer, bigger home if it made sense. Um, and to not just be in the house because it's comfortable and it doesn't cost anything really. And so, but we do like it. It works fine for us. We don't have kids, so that also plays into the equation, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, but we also don't have to sell our house to downsize. We could sell our vacation home or something in the future. So we did leverage home size ability through different properties, I think, in different locations.
Now you said if it made sense, you'd buy a bigger house. What would make it make sense for you? Like why would you move?
Lowering the legacy value of our end of plan terminal value,
Lowering the
terminal
legacy
balance.
value. What do you mean by that? So
Right?
like
Just why die with extra money because we
okay.
didn't use it for something. I do like end of plan. I think that's a wonderful term. That's like sounds so successful, death.
Right.
And
Right.
I do like terminal balance because that sounds very heavy metal. Um, but
Yeah.
it's not really a good thing. So Die with Zero is fascinating to me. The concept of dying with zero regrets and not um, not letting your good chapters of life, your good opportunities of life pass by without taking advantage of them. Uh, I don't know about dying with $0. I don't even know how that would happen.
Right.
Um, but so there's different concepts I've learned, and I learned these by talking with the FI community because, and you mentioned that in the FI community that I met starting in probably 2017, financial independence community, were people that were just trying to be financially intentional, use their money with intention, spend and save and structure and look ahead and not live in the moment. And they were that I was 47 then in 2017. And I met a lot of people in their 30s and 40s and 50s who were living this lifestyle. And since then, in the past 7 years, I've met hundreds of people who've left their careers. That can also be in the Rock Retirement Club. There's lots of people who left their careers before standard retirement age of 65 or 62. And everybody's trying to live their best life, often live a better life than they did when they were working. And so much of the fire community is the press of this 27-year-old worked 5 years and is going to leave their career and live in Costa Rica in a hut and eat, I don't know, crickets and rice. And so that's not the people I know.
Right.
And there are some of those, absolutely. They're adventurous people, but I think it's very interesting the super intelligent people in the FI community and in the Rock Retirement Club who think through things, who give you a different perspective, give me a different perspective of what they're thinking now, what they did in the past, and what they're looking for in the future. And it just all adds together for a life that's more intentional, I think.
Yeah. Now, I had some other thoughts before getting more into like the community involvement in your participation in it. I know you're a fairly big name within the FI space now in the community. Just some technical questions people may be interested in. So, health insurance. So you stopped working in your 40s. Obviously, neither you nor your wife are 65 yet or on Medicare. I mean, you're a decade away from that. What do you do for health insurance, or what have you been doing?
So when we left work, I knew I was going to leave work multiple years before I did because I stayed 3 extra years. Um, I had a private insurance policy, like a $5,000 deductible is kind of like catastrophic, but not really. And I did that for years, for many years. My wife had her state of Arizona insurance, and when she retired, she took her small pension so that she could be an active retiree and qualify for the retirement health insurance.
Hmm.
And I was on my policy from 43 to 50. When I turned 50, I joined her policy because I figured, I don't know, things might start happening. I need to stop saving money or saving premiums. We budgeted $2,000 a month for that health insurance every year. It was right around the same. It didn't really go up because hers was a state pool, retiree pool.
Hmm.
And that was 40% of our $5,000 month budget was just the
Wow.
health insurance. And then we had home, autos, umbrellas. So over half of our spending was insurance just in case.
Now, interesting that you brought up spending. I didn't even think to ask you that and how much health insurance is relative to your total spend. Do you mind sharing now what your total monthly spend is, just so people can get a concept of like how lavish or tight do you live by their standards at least, or what they think their standards are?
I'll share this because this is how our spending structure changed. So for the first 7 years from 2013, 2014 to 2020, we spent about $5,000 a month. In 2020, I thought, wow, our savings have gone up. Let's give ourselves $1,000 a month for the entire decade of the 20s. I called it the Roaring 20s, but then that ended bad, so I changed it to the Raging 20s. And that went really good for 2 months, and then COVID hit and we couldn't spend. And so, the $1,000 a month was 12,000 a year, $120,000 for the decade,
Okay.
which was a chunk of money, but not a huge chunk out of what had our accounts had grown to, and we would be 10 years older. Um, and you could monitor that along the way. So that was the plan. I just did in the retirement calculators, I subtracted our brokerage account. I lowered it by $120,000 on January 2020 and just recalculated. Everything was fine. So we
Okay.
did that for 2 months and then we couldn't spend. And then in 2022, I noticed we could start spending more and our accounts had gone up a lot since before COVID. And um, we were now 8 years to go in the raging 20s. Rager, think Rager is a good thing, um, not the 20s they're
Right.
turning into. And it was a good thing. So I recalculated at $4,000 extra per month for 8 years, which was 400, 800. I don't even know. Four,
Okay.
48, 400,000, something like that.
Yeah.
And I subtracted that out and the numbers were still good and we could monitor that. So we almost doubled our spending budget opportunities for this decade and calculated those in as a 6 year, 8 year calculation, and we've regrouped it 2014. I'm sorry, 2024, when we met with the retirement planners, we regrouped and did that. And so what we call that is there's the go-go, slow-go, and no-go phases of retirement. We call this the mojo, which is before the go-go. So we're just
Okay.
full mojo ahead. We also, my friends and I talk about the fun bucket. We share that a lot with the fire community. And so we have a fun bucket that this $4,000 a month theoretically goes into, and we could spend that on whatever we want. And we've been doing trips with other people and a muscle car here or there for my wife and stuff like that. So it's obnoxious, but the accounts grew. So saving for 30 years, letting them grow for 6 and 10 years gave us this freedom because our base great life minimum dignity floor is totally reasonable, that's all extra fun numbers.
Yeah. Wow. Now, did you said, I think it was 2020, you recalibrated, you sort of ran your own numbers yourself and all looked good. So that's when you came up with the 4,000 bucks a month more. You don't have to give specific like software names. So what did you do? What process, what tools did you look at to let you get comfort that yes, spending 4,000 a month or more, even though you're only what, you were, 50 at the what,
I
51,
was
whatever,
50. I
50.
turned 50.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um,
So still 40 years is presumably of life, right? If not more.
yes, but I also calculated in that time that if I ran out of money in my late 70s, ran low on money, I'd be fine with a shared room somewhere as long as I had a bed, microwave, and internet. I figured I'd be okay, knowing I had decades of good living. It's kind of like your base level of acceptance, and I think I was okay with that. But I've I'm the king of the spreadsheet geeks in the Rock Retirement Club. We had a spreadsheet geeks, and there are people that are much better than me at spreadsheets. But so I have spreadsheets mostly to track and calculate and think through things. But I've used all the programs. I've used New Retirement Bolden. I've used the new Projection Lab, which is fantastic with the visuals. My wife can actually look at Projection Lab or Bolden rather than my spreadsheet, which is just like, okay, just tell me it's all right. I know how this all works, but I don't really want to look at your formulas. Um, we've have Empower. We have Monarch Money, which is like a Quicken that we've used. I signed up for. Because I talk with so many people in real life and in the RC life, I do pay for the tools so that I can understand those if people use them. Oh, and I use Money Guide Pro in the club, Money Guide Elite, which is one of the two or three main financial planning tools. And they all calculate correctly, but it wasn't until I hired a retirement planner who did their safety first calculations to see how they broke down the numbers of minimum dignity for base rate life, aging assistance, um, buffer, no guaranteed inheritance kind of thing to see how much was not allocated for those required safe categories that was free to spend. And that was from December 31st. 1st, 2023 numbers. So it's been 2 years since I pulled my numbers for that plan.
Okay. And I think it's important to pick up on you said that half joking, half serious, I suppose. If your money started to run really low in your 70s or whatever, like you can live in a room share with just internet and some, I don't know what you said, hot pockets or something. Maybe that's me, hot pockets. I think you may have said a microwave or internet. I don't know, whatever. Um,
That's it. I mean, you don't need but a bed, a microwave, and internet. I'm okay.
yeah.
It's
So
like you could be like 17 again.
yeah,
You're just
exactly.
71. I don't know.
Like Benjamin Button going in reverse or something. So I think that's really important for people to understand. Like all this stuff is planning and life and the markets and taxes and whatever other random circumstances are thrown your way will change. You need to have at least some level of commitment to adaptability and being able to rein in expenses to some extent. Now, you may be a little extreme by some people's standards. Like I don't think people in their 50s want to set out and say, no, I'll live it up the next 20 years. When I'm 70, if I need to, you know, go share some room with a microwave internet and that's it, I'm cool with that. A lot of people may not be, but I think the directionality and the concept is accurate, right? If you don't need to limit yourself to spending only 4% of your investable assets, if you're willing and able to say, okay, I want to enjoy it while I can. If things get really gnarly for whatever reason, I'll be able to cut back somewhat, and you can do projections to figure out what that level needs to be. But I don't know. It just sort of resonated with me that living the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years for people isn't going to be this steady trajectory of you're doing the same, living the same, spending the same, whatever. Stuff's going to happen for good, bad, or indifferent. And just be aware of that going into it, that things will change. I don't know.
Yeah, I see that. And so my mom, 79, and she's um widowed for 22 years. My mother-in-law is 89. She's been widowed for 25 years. And so I help them with organizing stuff and their financial structure. And they both have done really well over those years. But I see how things change and how structures change and how you're probably either you're going to die or you're going to be filing as a single filer on your taxes. And so you have to calculate those and what the life changes would be with those changes. I will say we are overfunded, um, and our if you do the analysis from the household balance sheet funding structure or our retirement Monte Carlo scores are super high. They've always been fine, but even stacking those up. So I'm not freewheeling spending too
Yeah,
much.
right.
But, and like you said, are you falling behind? And Fritz Gilbert had articles on this where his Roth conversions, he'd do these Roth conversions in the tax bracket, fill the tax bracket, and the end of the year, the IRAs would be more than he started before he did the conversion. So like it's a horrible problem to have was when your money's growing faster than you can spend it. Um, but um, I mean, that's that whole compounding interest simplified. If you've saved for decades and not spent that, then that money's working for you. And
Yeah,
on the Money Guy show, they say it's the army of dollar bills going off to work every day, and you don't have to. So it's
exactly. And that's fascinating that you mentioned your mother, your mother-in-law. So you've been able to either firsthand or very closely witness and be involved in like the 20-something-year-old planning, getting serious about finances, already thinking through an early exit by normal standards, early exit from the workforce. Now the living in the fire thing, the lack of work income thing for quite a while, and then seeing sort of on the other end 80-something-year-olds living their life in retirement, presumably beyond their go-go years at that stage. So you have a wealth of knowledge and experience to bring to this. So I guess that segues nicely into the community again. I know you're big. It sounds like well, maybe step back a little. So 2017 is when you first formally got introduced or formally found out about the fire community.
yes.
How'd that come about?
I think that I went to a local Choose FI meetup, um, and I met people there. And then within a year, I went to Camp Fives that Stephen Boyer puts together at 6 locations around the country. And there's usually 50 or 60 attendees of all ages and all financial independence stages of life. And so I just talked with a lot of people who had similar interests about financially intelligence, intentionality, and life, living life. And it's just grown from there. Kevin Lyles said, and I'm Kevin number two in the club. He requires Kevin number one for his title, but he gave me a hard time in 2020. He said, "You're 50. Didn't you age out of that fire thing?" And I thought I did. But then I realized a lot of the people that I knew were aging with me. So there's lots of people in their late 40s, 50s in that community.
Got it. And so, yeah, Kevin Lyles, for those who didn't realize this, he was on last month's episode of Real Person Show. He's the other Kevin from the Rock Retirement Club. So Kevin Sebesta here today is forced to go by Kevin too because the other Kevin
He is the
sticking
Kevin,
claim
and
for.
I'm the other
That's right.
Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin two or the other Kevin, either way. So then you started out, you got introduced and sort of integrated into the FI community, and it makes a lot of sense. Maybe at the time everyone was, 40 something, but you're all sort of aging and progressing together through this FI thing. What else has been your involvement? I'm pretty far removed and not involved in the FI space, but I know you are. Other than the Rock Retirement Club, and I don't want to make this a pitch for that, but um, what else do you do? How engaged are you? I know you do a lot of traveling and stuff like that, but are you formally sort of presenting, hosting, running meetups or whatever with the FI world?
Uh, I I don't want to talk about myself so much because my
That's what you're here for,
story's
man. Come on.
different. No, it's different. It's, but I think it's about the community I want to talk about and the stories and ideas that we have kind of as a collective because in a, like two-thirds of the way we think is all kind of is very similar. We have a delayed gratification aspect. We have a living life now aspect. We spend on the things we love and we get rid of the things that we don't want to spend on. There's lots of talk about spend on experiences, but not on things. But some of the people I know are like us. We like things. Why not? And so I do travel and I didn't do the retire. So for, oh, I guess it was about the first 6 years of retirement, I think I only went to the airport twice. Like I just didn't travel much. We went to our beach house in San Diego, and kind of just did that thing back and forth. But uh, through the financial independence community, I found a lot of people take trips, and sometimes someone says they're going on a trip, and then three other people will join them. And then sometimes there's people in the community that coordinate trips. Besides the local camps, which are just Friday through Mondays, usually around holiday weekends. There's also events like Economy in Cincinnati in March. There's a retreat in Bali that I've gone to that Roger Whitney's going to go to this fall. That's put on by Amy Minkley. There is Five Friends Travel, where Kristen is like she's doing the pre-retirement thing where she just works part-time now. And so she loves traveling. So Mark Troutman and I told her, just schedule trips and organize trips and bring people along. And we told Amy Minkley and Bali, yeah, if you set this up, people will come. And so they both have these activities where you can sign up on websites with them and do these adventures with anywhere from 15 or 20 people traveling with Kristen's Five Friend Travels to the Bali trip, which is 50 people. And so there's people in the community that are setting up events, taking chances. Never mind Economy, which is 500 people that Diana started out of nowhere to just bring people together so that you could find people that you got along with at your stage or were ahead of you, or you're trying to help get to where you're at. And so that's how our travels have happened. I have friends that I met through the Rock Retirement Club. There's 10 of us. We are high achieving people that now we call ourselves slackers because we don't have to do any of the high achieving stuff. And we've taken trips all over the world, cruises. We've been to Bali, the Caribbean. We just got home 2 weeks ago. So it's that's the biggest surprise in retirement that I never even considered was having a community, or even better, having a group of friends to travel with. My wife and I went to Morocco for 2 weeks with 17 of us, with five friends travel. And then also the slackers, which are like brothers and sisters. So I have the community, which are like cousins and brothers and sisters, and the slackers. And I never envisioned that. I'm an only child. I'm an introvert. Um, and so, but when you're around people that you can relate to and you can open up to and you can pry them for information or you can ask what they're doing on things, it really multiplies the abilities, I think, in life.
Now, obviously, there's a lot of really strong common denominators across you and the community, so I can see why it's such a tight-knit group, whether it's sort of the cousin aspect or the closer brother and sister aspect of the slackers. Have you found that given your life circumstances are probably different than most people who are 55, like, do you not really have friends that aren't in the FI community because they're either all still working or don't really get you in the life that you're doing now? Or it's a bit of a weird question, but just sort of popped in my head. Like, um,
I don't need
I don't
other
know.
friends, I guess. Well, it goes back to when I'm 71, I could just have a roommate and just be fine. But
Right.
as an introvert, I don't need, I get energy from myself, my curiosity. I think that's one of my favorite things is I'm not a purpose person. I don't want to find purpose, big purpose, small purpose. I'm not external driven, I'm internal driven. And I think there's a lot of purpose that comes from externally, your careers. If you were an external person and visible and other people depended on you, maybe that leads to wanting to continue that in purpose. But for me, internal, I was always behind the scenes doing computer stuff, uh, working with people around the world. But so I've always been a behind the scenes person. And so I do like I play hockey, ice hockey here in Phoenix, which is ironic, and I'm in a hockey club where they rent ice like 10 times a week. They rent games a few times at lunch at different rinks and a few times in the evening or the morning. And I play at lunch, and there's a lot of people, like there's 22 guys, usually guys, there's women too, but usually half of them are kind of retired or very work flexible. And so they go out to lunch after or see each other at other events and things. So there's a community there. If I want to, I've gone a couple times to the lunches, which are pretty interesting, but I don't have the same connections with them as financial life living. They might be more family, they might be more career. And in California, everybody seems like they're on a weird work schedule because they could surf every day at 8 a.m. And I don't know if they go to work or what they're doing. So I think the world's becoming more flexible in time. It's not just 8 to 5 plus the commutes. So you can find, they call it finding your tribe in the Phi community, people that just have that same bond inherently, and it's super powerful.
Yeah.
It's, I know that I can contact people or uh, if I needed help and they would come help me and I would go help them, even if I've only met them a couple times. If I had the opportunity and the need, what they need, I would do that just because I think we have a bond, a bind.
Maybe both. Depends on the day. It's interesting how the passion and that common bond could really impact what you do. So like I only know you through the club and our interactions and togetherness there, and you seem very outgoing and extroverted. I don't know if you're forcing it or it's could just be that it's your passion and you're around your tribe, like you said, so it comes natural. So you host these, we call them coffee with Kevin meetups, where it's a chat. People get together and talk. Sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's virtual. So it's interesting to hear you say you're introverted, yet I see you appear, very much the opposite, at least in the context of the club and you being around your folk, which is interesting. But
I think it's about them more than me. It's about who I'm with, if I'm comfortable with them. A lot of the community, since there's m many Kevins, I'm just called too much Kevin because I think I get
right,
wound up when I'm around others that I think just energize me, which is ironic. And it's only this community. Like I can go to a Christmas party and not talk to anybody. I can go to California to we have a house and a nice trailer. It's a trailer in a nice trailer park. It's funny. And I just don't talk to people for like 2 weeks. it's not my thing because I know everybody and I'm friendly, but I don't get energy from that. So
Yeah.
it's the other people that I get energy from. And the RRC's like that. There's so many intentional, wise people there that are, and they're all giving. And I think part of that I like is the giving aspect where when everybody's giving, like you wonder who's receiving. And I think we all do, and we just don't realize because we're not trying to take, we're
Correct.
giving, but it still receives. And that's the communities I've been part of. And people have that in their faith communities too. And so I can understand that if you have those common beliefs that bring you together and those interests and those growth opportunities, it's kind of the same situation as long as it's a bettering situation, I think it works out well for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That makes a lot of sense. So I wanted to touch on, so you've been on a few shows and stuff before. I mean, your big claim to fame in my eyes was being on the Retirement and IRA show with Jim and Chris, and that was very well received. But also, you and I chatted beforehand just to sort of like sketch out some stuff we want to make sure we touch on. And there's definitely some nuggets and takeaways I want to make sure you get a chance to elaborate on, like thoughts and sort of guidance or insight to the group of people listening. I guess maybe even specifically those within the FI space or thinking about FI. One was just the comparison of optimization versus winging it. What are your thoughts on that? Winging it may not be the best word, but yeah, hopefully you can explain where
That
I'm going with
I
this.
got Wing It from Big Earn Karsten. He mentioned that in a presentation, so the Slackers love that because it just sounds better. Um, So Kevin Lyles talked about it on the last month's about the 90-10 principle. I was going to say rule, but there's no rules in retirement. There's
Yeah.
not at all. That's the best part. And Fritz Gilbert and Kevin Lyles went through this where before retirement, the planners, the people that listen to shows like this and have calculators or spreadsheets, spend 90% of their effort figuring out the numbers, making sure the numbers are okay, and you will have enough money to get through your retirement. And we don't know how long that is, and we don't know inflation or returns or life events. And so you plan for this, and you spend 10% thinking about, okay, what am I going to do during the week, or am I going to have hobbies or something? And then a few years into retirement, a lot of people who've saved and structured things in most manners, I think, as a saver, the money tends to work out. I see that with my mom and my mother-in-law, and then a lot of other people. You have what you have, and you figure it out, and you live your lifestyle around that. Um, and so once that starts to feel okay, and after a couple of years, maybe 12, 18, 24 months or more, you start to think about 90% is what am I going to do with my life and my time and my structure? And I like to think of life in weeks because daily is just too complicated. And quarterly sounds like I'm trying to create goals. You had a question about what are your goals? Like, there's no goals. Um, but there should be some structure. And so the 90-10 rule makes a lot of sense. And then it also comes back to the optimizing. Like, I know I won't use the R conversion word on your show because you hear this constantly. And we all hear this constantly because it's the optimization method. And yes, you have opportunities to do that, but it's often a small scale of your grandeur plan and your yearly taxes and your yearly bracket and your lifetime tax burden and your married filing jointly might become single filer and now you have $6,000 over 65 deduction amounts and all this crazy stuff that you can't optimize this and you can fine tune somewhat, but sometimes living life um, takes a back seat to that. And I do get on my computer all the time and I read stuff and I calculate away and I do things and that's okay. And I don't check my accounts every day to see where they're going up or down. I honestly, I kind of look at them thinking this is just crazy that we're in this position where those accounts are not showing a negative impact to any future activities, maybe showing good activities. So um, optimization is inherent for some people who like to plan, like to think. I wrote down in my notes, some people are strategic, long-term vision, and some people are tactical for step-by-step stuff. I have a little bit of both. But I think the lifestyle, we've talked about the community, we've talked about I was zero living life. We talked about chapters. We talked about mojo, go go, slow go, no go. Those things are real. My mom, and this is one thing this is my newest thing. No, that sounds horrible. Um, my mom moved to memory care 10 days ago, and she's doing good there. But I heard all the costs about it can be $11,000 a month for memory care, and it's a budget breaker, and it could be horrible. And we don't know if it's going to be 18 months or 3 years or 10 years in memory care. And her costs, we looked at two different private state certified homes in my area, and they're not $11,000 a month for a room. They were under $5,000 a month, unless you got the master bedroom, which was 5 or 6,000. And so the costs are less than half of what the Genworth studies are saying. Now it's a different type of care. It is memory care. Um, but it seems like both homes that we talked with and went toward are both their businesses run by people. They have 5 residents maximum, so they have 4 bedrooms plus caregivers 24 hours a day who live there. And the cost was so much less than Genworth had scared me into for my mom that she's okay with the little pensions that she gets and the survivor Social Security that she receives to be okay there without impacting her assets. She never wanted her assets to go to just housing her in the future. She just said, I don't want to do that. That's not what we saved for. We saved for using that money for life, not to sustain it. And so that's shifted my mind for myself for my future is we're going to self-fund our long-term aging plan. We'll call it long-term aging. We're going to self-fund that because we seem to have the money set aside and structured for that. But the costs might be much lower based off what I'm seeing in maybe it's because Phoenix, there's a lot of homes where people are doing this as income. I mean, think if you have 4 homes, 4 bedrooms making thousands of dollars each, that's probably a good return. And I don't know how long she could stay there, how much care she's going to need, but I've never heard anybody talk about actually going into one of these homes. I have a friend who has an Alzheimer's podcast, Surviving Alzheimer's, and I play hockey with him. And his wife had early onset in her 50s, late 50s. And he did mention that her costs were a little more than what my mom's are seeing. But that's my newest thing is, wow, it's not this, in our case, at this point, for these two options, it's not this horrible $130,000 a year cost. It's actually cheaper than her staying at home with a caregiver that we paid.
I wonder if that's a function of, so she's near you in Phoenix somewhere, Phoenix
She's
area?
close. She's a mile, 1.2 miles away. I come home from hockey, see her. I go over and see her every couple days. I'm trying to let her settle in there.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just jaw-dropping to me how caring they were. There's 2 caregivers and there's 4 residents now. And it was just shocking how caring they are. Everything's covered. They want residents to provide income, so they want
Yeah.
I don't know, they don't have a waiting list at this one. The first one also had a waiting list, but um, that was very eye-opening for possible future stuff for me. And I told them when I'm there, I feel like some of the people are older and not talking as well, or not talking at all. And talking to my mom who can't really she cannot get a logical sentence out. And I told them, boy, I'm aging as I sit here visiting. And the caregivers were laughing. I said, if I come in with a cane, I might want to go on the wait list.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so, but that was an interesting thing to me is we don't always have to fear the unknown. The unknown is scarier than maybe the reality that we can actually address.
that's true. I think plan for it, try to account for it. Should you always try to account for the worst case, most expensive that can happen? Probably not realistically. I think if you were to do that, no one's ever going to be able to retire.
Mhm.
If I was thinking
Exactly.
about what if I have 10 years of $10,000 a month memory care? that's probably a budget buster for most folks, right? So you're
Yeah,
never
you're
going to stop
talking
working.
$1 million of today's money that you have to set
Yeah,
aside in today, if it was the next 10 years, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know when this life incident's going to happen. So you
correct.
kind of have to have some of that money in cash-like instruments or close to cash in case you need it, because you don't want to have to sell equities to get into a place in a bad year. So
Right.
it's all these levers you have to calculate. And so that was a new one for me that I've never shared with. It just happened 10 days ago.
Wow. I wonder if it's because it's an area of the country where there are a lot of people of that age. I don't know. My mom lives 45 minutes away from Phoenix, and it's all people, 55 plus, if not 65 plus. Uh, so I don't know. Possibly there's just more availability of those services, hence supply and demand, it's slightly lower. I'm curious, was the Genworth study, the averages you saw, was that for for Phoenix area, or that was just national average, the
That
high
was
costs?
national average. That
Okay.
was the retirement planner's estimate-ish. That's what we hear. And so that goes back to the reports and the media sharing these numbers of it could be this
Yeah.
11,000 a month, and the fire community or 27-year-olds leaving their careers or a 32-year-old making $40,000 a month in passive income. Like they're just headline grabbing things, and there's truth behind many of them, but it might not be um, descriptive of the whole story for the whole community. So that was a new one, and I think that's kind of valuable for anybody trying to figure out what do I do at the later stages and the slow go and the no go.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely interesting to think about. Um,
What a downer. I didn't talk about end of plan
uh,
yet.
no, it sounds so good when you say end of plan, though, like you said
It
before.
does. It sounds so successful.
Anything else you want to add? So there's a few takeaways that we rapped about beforehand. I want to make sure you can get those across to folks listening. But before we hit that, anything else comes to mind? You want to talk about your journey, fire? Anything else you think would be worth bringing up to listeners here?
I think there's a couple things. One is I've seen that the person you are at the start of your retirement tends to be the person you were before you retired. If you're a high achieving person, you probably will start retirement as a high achieving type personality. If you are anxious and stressed out in your employment status, you're probably going to start retirement being anxious and stressed out. If you're easygoing, probably going to continue easygoing. If you're adventurous, you're going to definitely continue being adventurous. If you live by your title, that's going to be tough because you were a such and such. And I think curiosity is something that a lot of people are discovering is really important to their brain and their interests and activities. Uh, I People talk about freedom. They want freedom in retirement. And this year, I've thought my word of the year, because Roger's all word of the year, Roger Whitney, is ability. Like you can have freedom and that might give you ability to do things, but if you don't take the action, it's just an ability to do something. You got to put that into action. So my word is ability, being able to do things or make decisions or whatever that is. And I think that's probably what I've seen from others is um, how retirement starts. And that's why I think, start being your retired self now, plan ahead, start activities, start interests, think about your retirement week, and don't wait. Don't say, when I retire, I will. I think that's the worst sentence. Right? We don't know when that's going to happen or how you're going to feel, if it's medical issues or if it's life changes with family. Don't say when I retire, I will. Say, I should try this now because I might like that for the future. And part of that might help if you have some fun bucket in retirement. We set aside some money for fun. That was our Mojo money. The $1,000 a month that we started with was just whatever we wanted to do. My friends have carved, some of us actually have separate accounts now that have this cash in there. Might be 10,000 or $50,000 or six figures if you're planning a long-term fun bucket. But the idea is to spend that money on things you want to do for fun, that it's not critical for your plan. And you separate those two pieces. And you can start that now. I tell people, even if you're in your 20s or 30s, set aside $2,000 a year or something. It's a big chunk, but if you're working and saving, don't save it all. Set aside some to live it up or reward yourself with something. Um,
Yeah.
because all sacrifice is not going to help. Because then when you get to retirement, you've been sacrificing, so you're going to start retirement as a sacrificer.
Yeah. Agreed. I started kind of doing that. I mean, not that we ever really skimped per se, but we're never lavish spenders. But I realize I mean, I love what I do. I plan on working in the traditional sense for quite a while still. Plus, I have two kids on the verge of college, so there's some big expenses coming up. But like we did a cruise this past year or past summer, the four of us, and sprung for two rooms. Like we could have made it
Oh,
work with one
nice.
room, but would have been a mess. You know, four people, three of which are females, and me in the same room. So we got adjoining rooms, and it like doubled the cost, basically doubled the cost. And as you know, cruise rooms aren't cheap, and these were rooms with balconies, but it was well worth it. It made the trip better. We all appreciated having a little more space in what are still small rooms, and no regrets about it. Right, it's a few $1,000s extra, but it was money well spent. Now, that's me trying to like pull forward some of the spending and enjoyment later. Like live your life now, have some fun now. You got to balance, live today, but not blow it all. So you got nothing left, so you can't live in the future. It's a hard tightrope to have to balance, but
And
with
you
some
know
intentionality, you can get there.
that decision for two rooms pays off for you two and the two girls having their own independence and freedom. And um, I mean, it actually multiplies itself. It's not just the separation, it gives that freedom sense. And I think that's great. I think those things like that are outside of the normal comfort zone also help you see opportunities to try things more, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that. You may not realize it so clearly in the moment, but there are sort of like knock-on benefits and takeaways from it. So. Um, Anything else? I just want to recap because I think you had really, you sent me ahead of time some thoughts. And I think it was really brilliant sort of takeaways. One was you already touched on begin your retirement self now. Don't just say when I retire I want to do X. Like start to do X now. See if it actually works for you, if you enjoy it or whatever. Fun bucket, create some fun bucket. Have some money today that you just live with. Don't save everything for the rainy day or for the next 40 years down the road. And obviously community, super important. Power of community. You've touched on that and how that's impacted you and impacts others. Um, Anything else?
No, other than I want to thank you for all the way back when you were doing the Facebooks and the live stuff and the questions and the nerdy stuff. I'm sorry you are the tax guy only because you know so much more about living and structuring the financial side of life so that you can live it. And I think that's why I like the new name and strategy for your podcasts and the videos and everything, because I think um, you're relatable, you're easygoing, super knowledgeable, and the other piece is you come across as well, you are giving, and so many of the media they're content creators, that's the technical term, are all knowing. And that's not what we need. We need real people who are giving and sharing more than the all-knowing person. And I thank you for that because I've been watching your stuff before you were in the Rock Retirement Club and I met you. Um, and I know there's thousands of people that have better lives because of what you've given and the time you've put into that just to help others. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And likewise, I realize the technical aspects only get you so far in creating and structuring a fulfilling, satisfying life. And I'm trying to learn as best I can. I'm young. I haven't lived it. I'm not living it yet. I'm 48. So like the meaning, the purpose to doing stuff you enjoy and having a truly fulfilling life, like you said, it's so much more than just the dollars and the tax stuff. Not that that's not important, but so folks like you and the other Kevin, well, I guess you're the other Kevin, and Kevin, you and Kevin, I'll say, I've learned a lot from and really made me appreciate how much more there is to this retirement planning world beyond just the R word of Roth conversions and trying to optimize armor stuff and whatever. So, actually, with that, you did bring up the R word before, Roth conversions. People probably want to know, do you do conversions? And if so, what's your kind of thought process or approach around it?
Hell yes, I've done Roth conversions. I mean,
All
you
right.
tell me there's an early retiree who hasn't done Roth conversions. That's probably just someone wasting the 12-0 bracket.
There you go.
Um,
Okay.
so yeah, we married filed joint. So we did Roth conversions to the top of the 12-0 bracket for, I don't know, many years, probably 10 years. We have brokerage accounts. We have about, just in general, about a third of our accounts, our savings investments are uh, qualified accounts. So we luckily had saved in brokerage accounts forever. We and so now maybe 20% or something is in Roth accounts. But so we did use the 12-0 bracket. We did have qualified dividends each year, so I didn't really want to bump into the 22-15 bracket. Um, but we have done that a few times because that seems fine. But there's this weird technical stuff where if you just bump over, you get into this bump zone where you're paying both the 22, which is an extra 10 over the 12 plus the 15. So it's this crazy 27%. And I use dinkytown.net 1040 calculator because our stuff's pretty straightforward and you can see where that happens. So yeah, we've done those. I know friends that have lost their spouses and were planning on doing that. So they've had to change their strategies. I know friends that are trying to head towards the 24% bracket and just because most of their savings were in 401ks, which are now IRAs in
Mhm.
general. Um, and so they're doing that, trying to avoid NIT if they have brokerage accounts. So there is that tweaking, fine tuning. But yeah, we did that, and our accounts did grow faster than we could convert in the 12% bracket.
Like you said, great problem to have, though. So,
It was.
yeah. Awesome. Well, Kevin, I know you're a great guy, and thank you for sharing. And I know you also have a podcast slash, not podcast, I'm sorry, blog slash website. I don't want to put you on the spot, but are you interested in sharing that? People want to find out more about you and stuff you have to share, or we just skip it? If we skip it, I can cut this part out.
I I I do share my random thoughts at lifeandfire.com. I have for it's been 10 years, and I
Okay.
just share random things I'm thinking about, which I don't know if they're useful or not, but it's just me and the Chinese hackers that check it out.
So lifeandfire.com. I'll be sure to link to that in the notes. Awesome. This
And
was
one quick
very,
thing is you said
yeah.
you're still young, but I hate to tell you this, but you've only got like another year and a half of that, and then at 50, you're not young. You can't play off being young at 50. Younger,
That's yeah.
but you 40s you could squeak it out, but not after that. So enjoy that.
I know it has been weird. As I've been saying this over the last 5, 6 years. Like, oh, I'm in my 40s. I'm still young. I have a ways to go. It's like I'm really close to the back half of 40 now. Soon to have a five handle at the beginning of my age. That's a very different animal.
You'll be
Um,
closer to 100 than you are to birth.
yeah, exactly. I will, which is weird to me. I mean, I'm sure everyone says the same. I still feel young. I almost feel like I'm in high school, and then my knees ache a little more and stuff like that. But as I say it out loud that I'm 48, like I'm not that young anymore. But I guess it's all relative. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Thank you
young
for
young in the context of
doing this.
I'm not in retirement yet, right? So I can't speak from like the living retirement and the experience and the fulfillment stuff. But I'm trying to pick up more about that. So anyway,
You need to practice more of the retired lifestyle pieces.
yes,
I mean,
I
you definitely
agree.
have a work-life balance. I know you and I listened to your history. You've built a work-life balance that you enjoy, that gives you satisfaction, that helps others, and it has the balance. And I think that's a huge part. If you were able to do that, many people will continue doing that if the balance fits right.
Correct.
I didn't have that in a career. I had flexibility of location, but not that. So that's why I was done.
And I think that's huge. And I mean, I swear we'll wrap up here soon, everyone. But retirement, in my mind, is more freedom of time, freedom of purpose. You're doing things you want to do because you want to do them, not because you have to, because you need money from them. Like, yes, in my case, I very much still need money because, life's expensive, two kids, whatever. But I thoroughly enjoy what I do, and I've found intentionally, have structured and found a good balance that this doesn't feel like a job. It doesn't impinge on my ability to still do things I want to do personally, how I want to spend my days, whatever. I can see me doing this, I don't want to say forever, but really long time, even well into my 60s, maybe cut back the workload some, but this affords me the structure and flexibility to still do things I want to do, time-wise, experience-wise, what have you. So in that sense, I sort of almost feel like I'm retired. Very different than retirement in the traditional sense, but I understand what you're saying, and I agree with the flexibility aspect being very different of
I
comparing
think you
myself to
stated it
traditional.
where if you're looking forward to your week, then you're doing things right.
Yes, that
Maybe
sums it
that's
up
all it
neatly. Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Maybe it's, and I've used the term being a little selfish uh, with your life and your time and your activities. And I used the word little, and I was told you can't say the word selfish. And I thought, wow, I'm an only child who's retired early. That's how I am. But
Yeah,
I'm still giving. But so I think looking, being able to look forward to your week really is the core of the next 7 days.
that's life. And if you can run that the rest of your life, then congrats. Like you found the secret to happiness, I think. So
I had a new blog post title I was just crafting the other day, and someone said, "Have a good weekend." And I, to me, that is the weirdest statement to hear in retirement. Absolutely bonkers.
wow, I didn't think about that. That makes it interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay. All right, so let's really wrap it up now, for real this time. So Kevin, appreciate it very much. Thank you for coming on, sharing, and this was super insightful for not just myself, but I'm confident others will get a lot out of it too. So thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, take care, everyone.